When the Legends Died, Chapter 25. They harvested the beans in the old way, pulling the vines, piling them on a tarp, flailing them with a stick. Then they took away the broken vines and winnowed the beans, scooping them into a flat basket, holding the basket high and slowly pouring the beans onto a fresh tarp. The wind blew away the broken pods and chaff. It was slow work, and Mio never hurried. The friole, he said, takes its own time. It waits for the sun and the rain, then grows one day at a time. Why should I tell it to hurry now? If I do not eat this friole, it will wait and grow again. It does not need me to tell it what to do. He scooped another basket and poured the beans slowly, watching the broken pods drift away and the dry, hard beans flow in a pattering stream onto the tarp. We know these things, you and I. Our people were not born last year. We are of the old people. They threshed the beans and winnowed them. Then they sat on the ground and sorted them handful by handful, picking out the bits of stem and the small brown pebbles before they put the beans into the storage bags. The sun was warm, the air was mild, and even the magpies in the cottonwoods had ceased their noisy scolding. Life seemed as unhurried as the day or as the beans. Tom asked, "Why did you come here, Mio?" "One must live somewhere." For a minute Mio was silent as he sorted another handful of beans. Then he asked, "Why did you come?" Tom answered in Mio's own words, "One must live somewhere." Where did you live before?" "On the reservation. I herded sheep." "Before that?" "I lived in the mountains, in the old way." "Why did you leave the mountains?" "They came and took me away." "Your father and mother?" "They are dead." They sorted the beans in silence for a time. Then Mio said, "The mountains are still there." "The old way is finished." Unconsciously, Tom made the cutoff sign. "I have no one," he added. Mio poured a handful of beans into the bag, picked up another handful, and began to sort them. "So you came here, with him?" He pointed with his chin toward the cabin. "Why?" "To be a rider." Mio grunted. "Why?" he asked again. Tom wondered how to tell him what he had felt when he was riding the big bay at Aztec, but the words wouldn't come. It was something deeper than words. At last he said, knowing it was not the whole truth, but still a part of it, "To be the boss." Mio slowly shook his head, then glanced toward the cabin again. "He is the boss." "I am the boss on the horse. Sometimes, when he tells you to be." Tom shrugged. "That is the way it is. I ride, I eat. What else is there?" Mio poured another handful of beans into the bag. It was almost full. He got to his knees, grunting at the stiffness of his joints, and tied the bag with a string. He got to his feet, motioned to Tom, who took one end of the bag. They carried it to the cabin, stowed it in a corner by the fireplace. Red lay on his bunk, 2 empty bottles on the floor beside him. He heard them, half opened his eyes, and muttered, "Get out, leave me alone." They went back to sorting beans. After a few minutes, Tom picked up a single bean and held it in his gnarled fingers. "Friole," he said to it. "Our young friends think he is the boss. He will eat you, Friole, but you have a rumble to make, so you will make that rumble in his belly." He shook his head. "Our young friend will be eaten too. We are all eaten. If he has a rumble to make, where will he make it? In the belly of the one who eats him?" He dropped the bean into the bag and picked up another handful, began to sort them. Tom shrugged, then picked up a bean, held it between his fingers as Mio had done. "Friole," he said, "maybe Mio will eat you, not me. Then where will you make your rumble? Is Mio the boss to tell you what to do?" Mio went on sorting beans. Finally he said, "Life is the boss. We do what we can. Then we are old. We creep off in a corner and sit, and the tongue makes the rumble. But it is the only noise. Talk, talk, talk." He sighed and was silent. They harvested the beans. Then they picked the chilies and made long strings of them and hung them from the roof beams to finish drying. But after that one afternoon of talk, Mio was his taciturn self again, saying little, keeping his thoughts to himself. The fourth afternoon, Red came out of the cabin, pale, weak-kneed, and weaving. He made his way to the horse trough, doused his head in the icy water, then sat in the sun for an hour. At last he shouted, "Hey, Mio, make me some fresh coffee." When Mio told him the coffee was ready, Red went back to the cabin. He was there at the table, silent and disheveled, holding his cup of strong black coffee in both hands. When Tom and Mio went in to eat supper, Red made a nauseated face at the sight of their food. He left the table, threw the empty bottles out the door, and went back to bed. He still had a hangover, but he was sober the next morning. After breakfast, he told Mio to bring the horses in, and when Mio had left, he said to Tom, "You're going to ride. Get the kinks out of you. Next week." "What day is this, anyway?" "Friday," Tom told him. "Week after next, we're going to hit the road. But before we go, you're going to learn how to lose a go-round without getting thrown. Let a horse throw you, you may break an arm or something. Then we're out of business for a month." Tom was staring at him, his mouth set angrily. "What's the matter with you?" Red flared. "You got ideas? If you have, get rid of them. We're not in the hero business. You're going to lose a lot of go-rounds. Understand?" Tom didn't answer. "I said, do you understand?" Tom nodded reluctantly. "Heroes," Red said, "are a dime a dozen. Little two-bit heroes everywhere you go, and they all wind up broke, especially if they are Indians or Mex. Mio here was a hero once." He laughed. "Now take a look at him. Just another broken-down old chili eater." Tom made no comment. After a moment, Red said, "There are a dozen ways to lose a go-round. You're going to learn them all, and you're going to learn how to look good doing it. Look like you're doing your damnedest not to lose. Understand?" Tom nodded. "We're going down south," Red said. "They hold a lot of little rodeos down there, and they're awfully proud of their heroes." He grinned. "Proud enough to back them with betting money. It'd be a shame to let that money burn holes in their pockets, wouldn't it? When we can take it away from them so easy." Then he saw the look in Tom's eyes, and he said, "And if you ever get any ideas about double-crossing me, get rid of them too. Just remember who's the boss around here." "I'll remember," Tom said. "You forget it, I'll break your goddamn neck. Better put new Latigos on the saddle. I'll be out as soon as I'm finished eating."